a lot of times we require fields, and I'll show you assignee as an example, but this is kind of the bare minimum. Assignee is one of those fields where it's like, okay, well, we need to know who's assigned to something, but this is really the first step. Most teams that I've worked with and that I've seen in the past require a lot more fields than this. But for the sake of this demo and this for this specific example, I'm going to show you just the assignee field. So basically, I'm going to require the assignee field when I go from requested to in review. So I'll grab this. This currently is assigned to no one. I'll drag and drop, and you'll see something very familiar where it's like, hey, unable to move this work item. We need a value for an assignee. Now, this is very common, and I actually really, really hate doing this for a few different reasons. But the biggest reason is because it literally takes 5 times longer to now go in and add an assignee where you didn't actually need to. So if we actually count the steps of, let's say, moving this from requested into in review, now that there is a validator on the workflow that requires the assignee, let's just count how many steps that takes. So I'm going to grab it and drag it, drop it. So that's step 1. That's 1 click. Now I have to go into this request, and I have to find the assignee tab. I could either assign to me, or if it'll even take longer if I just click the drop down and assign to someone. Let's just say I'm going to assign to me. That's click number 3. And then we could either click the requested drop down and click the status, or we could click out of it and click and drag again. Either way, it's going to be 1 click and then 1 more click to click and drag. All right, so there we go. We moved over our card, and that took 5 clicks. So we went from a process that was literally a drag and drop, which is 1 click, to 5 clicks. That is literally 5 times longer, if not more, with all the, you have to go in there, find the right user, assign it. 5 times longer. Takes 5 times longer to do something in Jira than it would have been otherwise. Now, assignee is one of those fields where you probably want to require it for reporting reasons, for other various reasons, to be able to get context on information. But I like to do this in a slightly more creative way, where we don't actually need to require an assignee, but still collect the same amount of information. And the way I like to do this is by using an automation. So let's build that really quick. Let's say we're going from requested to accepted. All I'm going to do is go to my space settings, go to an automations tab, and then I think I already have one in here to assign the work item. I'm going to disable that and create a brand new one to show you exactly how I do this. And the trigger is going to be transitioned of the work item into the in review status from any status, or again, I'll select requested for this demo because you might be kind of going back and forth and you don't want it to get reassigned just in case. And then all we're going to do is add an action to assign a user, and we're going to assign it to the person who triggered the event. That's it. Our automation rule is built. All we have to do is turn this on. I'll just say assign work item for the name. I'll turn this on. And now if we go back and in review, I'll need to make sure to also turn off my validator inside of my workflow. Otherwise, it's going to take priority. So I'm going to disable my requirement. And essentially what's going to happen, let's update this workflow, is I'm going to get the same result as I would have otherwise with just 1 singular click. So we created that automation. We disabled a validator. And let me unassign this one next. And we'll run through that same exact process again. And now I could pull it over, put it into in review. And in just a second, the assignee will update to me automatically. Now, 99% of the time when I make a transition, the work item belongs to me. 99%, maybe 95% of the time, I'm the one who is responsible for the work item. Therefore, I'm the one who's assigned to it because I triggered the event. Now, the 5% of the time that I'm not the work item, I can easily go in here, click the work item, and reassign it to the person who is responsible. And you'll notice that either way, we're still spending roughly about 5 clicks in both scenarios. But 95% of the time, you're going to be saving 4 clicks whenever you run this process. So I highly recommend doing this and finding creative little ways like this that you can kind of skip the required fields, the required information in a workflow that you build. That way, it's easier to use a process. It's easier to just jump in, create things, to do things, to kind of flow through. And really, you shouldn't even notice or feel Jira getting in the way. It should feel like you're just kind of experiencing work and going through a workflow without things popping up and getting in your way, required fields, a bunch of clicks, etc. And for context, let's say that you spend maybe 10 minutes, maybe there's a couple of required fields throughout this workflow as I start to go through it that I need to fill out. Let's say it takes me maybe 10 minutes a day to add that context in, to go in, add, fix assignees, etc. That 10 minutes a day turns into 1 hour per week, 4 hours per month, 50 hours per year. And you might be looking at this and saying, okay, cool, it's not that much time, and 10 minutes a day, not that big a deal. But when you have so many restrictions, requirements, and it takes you 50 hours a year, which is 10 full working days for context, that is a system that is starting to create friction, create problem, make it just harder for your team to use the system, and probably one that they're less willing to adopt and less willing to actually utilize and look forward to using on a Monday morning. And that's exactly what we're trying to avoid here. We're trying to build a scalable, long-term system that's actually going to work for your team long term. And this is just one simple example of like a very specific scenario I've seen almost every single team do in Jira. But obviously, this applies to a lot of other things. You can, of course, for example, with the IT example that I've pulled up earlier, you can reduce the amount of fields that are required. How can we collect information and context about an individual, the equipment that they use, without requiring them to submit information? How can we simplify all of our request types and the total amount of request types, the terminology that we use? How can we make things simpler? How can we build for the skeptic? How can we make it easy to follow and very, very hard to bypass? Just this is the default when people think of, okay, I need to accomplish or do something in Jira. That's really the goal of what we're trying to build within our Jira environments. Real quick, I know this looks like a lot. And if you'd rather just have me and my team help implement exactly what I'm showing you in this video, that is exactly what we do. We're currently opening up 4 more slots for our Jira strategy. We only run 4 of these per month. If you're interested, hit the first link in the description below.